Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, "How should a son of the lineage train who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom?" Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, and no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight, and so on, until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so on, up to no old age and death, and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhi soha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva noble Avalokiteshvara that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Sharadvati Putra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
多觉全部的心，多觉成，求在的罗波当那罗，别教中别波当阿的想，仰连心老觉老所我的，想波同面眼睛当着的，求的月的当着别的。自过上着年生年吧，要见识别觉了所我的，要有月面兄弟路着那，大王找吧识别个交集，上去个叫宝宝要在所，上方大月觉了所我的，协助当地中阿的上。高等的别面部中的见，连教当学过去所那所，高等那么那所我的，看见心的世界中嘛，没到人边我兄弟早点，老汉的别到不给着见，要是就不见了所我的。要送个的老妈多结长，刚了刚的新年最重的，就当天幕我住自在的，这些老妈弄了所我的，让家送到给了大爷面，给上大宝这边叫我说，在这这边他给在把爷。现在些年闹了所我的，叫我更多要到那么多，这边去这边了同学的，找到了就有点绕做的，多久讲给我，要到就上街就当做的就当了，想就不多当天就说。大概姐姐这边所能见，到了平时上街如果说上街就做街就能了，想就不多当天就说，大概姐姐这边所能见，到了平时上街如果说上街就。做街就能了，想就不多当天就说，大概人说这边说，大概去街这边说能见，高了平时上街如果有，哎。哎，我这的开始的，我这半年开始的就了的，你嘛可以呢，可internet的开始开始的刚刚都就了嘛了开始的，他那个是确实是。
我可搞嘛做什么去？
给些的，可能也呢。
Bunny has a little problem with our internet connection or something. That's what Rinpoche said. Do you guys know? Bunny?
It's fine today. Carolyn gave me what I needed.
Okay, to chat.
Carolyn to
Carolyn.
So Rinpoche says thank you to Bunny. He received the bouquet of flowers a couple of days ago from you.
I had his birthday a month early. I apologize.
Yeah. and Rani la, Tachi Chiche, Tachi Chiche Betone, somebody who's power and Rangan Daniel, and the temple to be on board. And answer Generation Chichi, me bache.
So, as usual, the importance of two activities in the beginning and activities at the end of the teachings. So activities in the beginning of the teachings is a cultivation of motivations. For that, right from the beginning, one should try one's best to calm one's mind. And then within this, having calmed one's mind, then followed by the visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni before oneself in the space.
That any Java Jana, not to judge you, some Taji, and Yanishilaji, Lama called the scenario. That you Jana, and knowledge of the Lama calling a J, me bache.
So if one is able to visualize the extensive lineage gurus, then if one is familiar with this visualizations, one should do so by visualizing Buddha surrounded by the extensive deeds of lineage gurus and profound views and blessed practice. If that is not possible, one is not familiar with such visualizations, one can visualize Buddha Shakyamuni surrounded by the lineage gurus of Lam Rim Chenmo or Lam Rim.
Not to do it, you get then not around around young day, tacoda. The teaching a lot of Kanga Beach by inside. Kanga Jogo Togu and Kanga Kala, you tend to let you the Chinese. So then she chichilla inside. That Kanga Deva, no him, the Deva, then Deva to such a Kashuchi by him, but that much Katashin and machine also over the Michi by inside. Then rather Michi, and it's a gen. Nala, and Rani, so what did my children do? And the dragon, my son, she don't hand the dollar Kaditana. That dinner should be a long mature number. And my son is Zipatilla Miowaji, None. Thinking about the Tawachi Chago would do singing, so I should chumbo to me by check.
So now, having visualized the object of refuge before oneself in the space, one is then visualize being oneself in their presence, surrounded by all sentient beings who has a similar goal or the similar objective as we all do. Just think about a simple example that if the people are really hungry and when they see their food giving away, then suddenly all those people who are hungry will be gathered, rushed into the place where the food is giving away, right? In the same manner, here now, desire for happiness and overcome suffering is the same objective of all sentient beings. So therefore, think about, extend happiness upon all sentient beings and overcoming the suffering of all other beings. And then supplicate from the bottom of one's heart to the object of refuge that you have visualized earlier by petitioning them, saying that, may you please look upon us, your compassionate eyes, look upon us with me and all other sentient beings who long to achieve happiness and overcome suffering.
That maybe you get it on. It does jolly be Devani, there's you and the common needs to be the Chinda.
In order to stabilize our faith towards object of refuge and compassion towards all other sentient beings, let's take a couple of minutes to meditate.
Right. 자, 되게 그런 치바체잖아요. 컨셉바세 있죠. 아니, 다들 주주만아, 좀 상제지 살아줘야. 만화한테 비니 샤초라리 참.
So, with these visualizations, the teachings we are receiving is what we call the impeccable teachings of that guides the followers unmistaken path of the state, unmistaken path to the state of enlightenment. Those who wish to achieve liberations.
Right. 되게는 나를 좀 치바샤와라니 자이 사지지. 아니 추군좀 받는 미션 제법이 차와 소라네 좀 도배 한번에 근데 랑게 제자이 하면 바지네 고소도 제 제이 배야만에 아니 대바지지. 최대 최대 맞는 지체지.
So with this, then one begins with listening to the teachings by reciting the first outlines of the Lam Rim Chenmo, which is the greatness of the authors.
다 나가래 사제 네바데 나가래 기바치비시 추치차와
음식 테스트 주나 녜디 인터넷 테스트 직제샤 연계시티 제
얘들 돼서 어제 있었지. 야야. 얘들 돼서 페이지 어제 야보이면서. 가는 중에 아니야.
디 캔서 시드다 오케이 음식 생는 돼
다야 다워요.
웅에디 던데 시지 뒷바랄려 지 고고를 슬레데치
야야.
You guys hear okay for me? Everyone? Okay? Okay, great.
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Okay.
단조상에.
나오 저 음식
다 동부 등한이 돼야지. 다 사제님한테 나가라 기바집이지. 취재 차와 소나. 다 가서기 취재 차와서는 배는 메시아다지. 저랑에 배는 간주 된적이 동부 다 가서 돈에 된자라서 되는로 저랑에 근데 보디지마도 다 주고 말했어. 내내 상제 사람 여기 차선지 거래서는 이제다 지기 당치나 다 나를 치면마다 배치 여말서 다 지쳐. 취재 차와도
So next outline is the showing the greatness of the teachings in order to engender respect for the teachings. So now these teachings of the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment encapsulates entire teachings of the Buddha. In other words, if we were to ask by someone, what kind of the teachings or the scriptures that you may define or you may identify, which encapsulates entire teachings of the Buddha, including Tibetan, the canonical volumes of Kanjuro or Tenjuro. There are like more than 400 or 500 volumes of those teachings. If we were to ask that which text can be encapsulate all those teachings, and the answer would be undoubtedly the Lam Rim Chenmo, the great deities and the teachers of the path. It actually serves as a synopsis for all those teachings. So this is the teachings that systematically and orderly practice for gaining the state of enlightenment for the one individual with unmistaken path or the unmistaken order or complete path. So then this will then be followed by the other three important outlines, such as the sequence in which the disciples are to be taught the actual instructions, then how to rely on the teachers, which is the root of our spiritual path, and how the students train their mind after having relied on the teacher. Song, Shansen de la Bala de Jean, Zone Chetan Betsuji, Atombola song, Kanala Bije, Della Biriba, Tella Bana de Della Biribaci, Tatomoni de Della Biriba de la Ni Rangi Sanji de Chimi Mamare, Shobatilla Lotan, Chiva de Pasha Tamanila, Lotseji, Tatombolas. Ni rangi sanje jimi bashi ba diyu pharo de shiba lo zhe da jinji jimi bashi ba diyu mo bashi na lo zhe da tongbo lo chu jimba lo zhe chutren lo zhe zoba lo zhe zuri lo zhe sangden lo zhe shira lo zhe ji tama zhe chuba shira lo zhe tama shang chu yi sanje de yi dong yi jase ji shoba lo lo go bi an pharo shiba zhu yu no ye ni ma zhe chuba ni shira ji lo ba de lo zhe ji. So we are on the particular chapter out of 6 perfections of the Bodhisattva's practice. We're on the 6th perfections, the perfection of meditative stabilization and wisdom. And particularly, we are on the particular chapter, which is how to train in the perfection of wisdom. So here I will be reciting the Lam Rim Dedun, which is the abbreviate deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment, which is also known as the experiential song of the Lama Tsongkhapa. So, as for a spacious purpose, I will be reciting the verse. Shana.
Something sell on the something job on it. And the garrison, you are maybe any. Jana, you may re on both.
So here the verse begins to read by saying, concentration is the king with the power over the mind. Like it said, it will not waver like a powerful king of mountains or the Mount Meru. That's what.
Gave me back in the Jew, said but me back to you in a Joanna, and it gave me
when focused, when such concentration is when it focused it entire into the virtuous object.
Listen less from the
and which then leads to the bliss of physical and mental pliancy. Knowing this, the powerful yogis rely continuously upon concentration So destroying the so now let me recite once again so that it become clear. So concentration is the king with the powerful over the mind. If set, it will not waver like a powerful Mount Meru or mountain, powerful mountain, in other words. When focused, it enters into the virtuous object and leads to the bliss of physical and mental pliancy. Knowing this, the powerful yogis rely continuously upon concentration, destroying the enemy of mental wanderings. So then here, Guru Lama Tsongkhapa has stated, I, the yogi, who practice this way, you who long to achieve liberation must do the same. For now here, for us, we should say by saying that the ennobling, impeccable Guru has practiced like that. Let me too, who strives for liberation, cultivate myself in the same way. Now let's go to the text, the perfection of wisdom and stabilization in wisdom. It is on the page 211, how to train in the perfection of wisdom. How to train in the perfection of wisdom has 5 parts. What is wisdom? First. Second, how to begin the generation of wisdom. Third, and then fourth, how to practice, and fifth, a summary. So now, if we were to, in accordance with the Chandrakriti's Madhyamaka Avatara, that the particular subject matter that we are discussing is discussed on the 6th bhumi, which is the 6th bhumi, the advancing, it is known as Ngondushoba. It's that advancing 6th bhumi. So why it is called advancing? The sixth bhumi is called advancing because you are advancing your realizations, and you're actually nearing towards, you're approaching closer towards the state of enlightenment. Because at the fifth bhumi, you are we are practicing on concentrations. When the concentration is become perfected, then it will lead oneself to the insight or the vipassana, insight into the reality, which then becomes, you will become, one will gain advanced knowledge, which becomes which actually guides us towards, closer towards the state of enlightenment. That is what is meant by advancing bhumi.
다 동번에 손도 동번에 싫어네 싫어서도 제당 싫어서 가지고 고고서나 제 싫어네서 답이고를 추럽도 넘번 집이 집어시바 인라 손도 근데 리피냐가를 켜봐라 소비 싫어때 상살래 손도.
So what is wisdom now? It says, in general, wisdom is what thoroughly discerns the ontological status of the object under analysis. But in this context, wisdom refers to the proficiency in the five topics of the knowledge and the like. The Bodhisattva's level says.
당가 싫어 시디 고아들 년도 되자. 답이고 시디 유 간지나 유무비 유무보기 간지라야 지 대다 대마인 바 나바 제네세데 로 간지나 대다 대마인 싫어기 제스만도가 다 쳐요 말이.
So now here it says to discern the ontological status of the object under analysis. So whether when one is actually engaging in one particular object and try to find the actual nature of this object, or try to understand, or try to ascertain, in other words, the nature of this object, the nature of this object can be ascertained by by the help of, in other words, by the support of wisdom. Without wisdom, it is not possible for us to really ascertain what is the nature of that particular phenomena and what is the not nature of this particular phenomena. If you look at the 55 mental factors, the 5 of which are known as discerning, or 5 of which are known as the ascertaining, 5 mental factors. So those ascertaining 5 mental factors are always supported by the wisdom.
La mine jubane chanchu samba no je shero ju moni yimba riba chao she sonso tela jubane she sama jubi shero ne sama to bi yinla re sama to bu gongge yinla se jubane sato ne se ale shansa ki ti chanto de.
So now here it says, what meditative stabilization is. The meditative stabilization is a virtuous, one-pointed state of mind that stays fixed on its object of meditation without distractions on the other things. The Bodhisattva's level says, it is the one-pointed state of mind stabilized on virtue and either mundane or supermundane of the Bodhisattvas who have first studied and reflected on the Bodhisattva's scriptural collections, whether it is oriented towards Nedi Norso. Teshua, Rimche Teshua, Norsha.
Yeah.
Ned and the Masama Ledisha. I'm reading to a different page. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, completely different. Yeah. It is it's on the page 212. 212. Okay. Mama Chamja Jigdormche. Know that the Bodhisattva's wisdom is thorough analysis of the phenomena that engager or engage all of what is to be known and what operates through focusing on the 5 topics of knowledge: Buddhist knowledge, grammar, logic, technical arts, and medicines. Here, the wisdom that engages refers to the wisdom prior to attaining the Bodhisattva's level. Wisdom that has engaged refers to wisdom after attaining such levels.
Shia Tonchil Juba City, Samata Vana Kore, and Shuja Tonchil Shuba City, and Satan Kore City, Natero. Yana Jawachi Jonia Tabatan, Sosot in the level Yakachavani, the Kagarwa. Satabi Kola Lesode, Tony Moso to the Satova Toba Hezadi, Sheryl around Tazarwa.
So here,
Satombo ne Tony Mosutoba Tombora, that Tony Sheraji Parashim Basanare, Tony Mosutoba Tombo Insadi, and Sheraji on the Tabaro.
Also. So here the difference between the two is here the wisdom that engages refers to the wisdom prior to attaining the Bodhisattva's level. Okay, and then wisdom that has engaged refers to the wisdom after attaining the such levels. So here the levels refers to the for the first bhumi of the Bodhisattva's crown, in other words, first Bodhisattva's crown, because when that practitioner is entered into the first Bodhisattva's bhumi or the first grounds of the Bodhisattva, and such practitioners will gain a direct ascertainment of wisdom realizing emptiness. So therefore, it refers to the engage, which means the wisdom after attaining the Bodhisattva's level, and then engages the wisdom that engages, referring to the Bodhisattva who are prior to attainment of the first bhumi of the Bodhisattva or the first round of the Bodhisattva.
Did you also repeat Nangatala Chomba Machina and Tabatanji, Maratanji Chamataba, Negomara Songora? Inchimija Tanji Chamataba, repeat Nangala Yapado on George Goda, you know, go on around the Bajun Uroko, Shizaki Juba the same, Shizaki Natanji the same in Uro, you know, Peshan on repeat Nangatala Chomba Machina and Tabatanji Togomare.
So here now we also find in very often we will find this the line in the text by saying that if one cannot make an effort to achieve 5 topics of knowledge, the 5 topics of knowledge, then one will not be able to gain liberations. So here now, because if one is able to engage in the practice very sincerely and diligently, one will be able to overcome the obstacle of knowledge. As you overcome, or as you sever the obstacle of knowledge, then this 5 topics of knowledge will be ascertained as byproduct.
Niba tere tombo shiro monchi niba teche balan jubi tao sede ani kanju chi so na ko teche be tao dela ani pya jone pya tone ni dela gabo chene deji che be derwa ani niba ne so de shiro jebi pya da ma jebi nimi samba yin la 대양是这到我都被写了原面就偏到里面呢，那种一个的切吧，你就为的，的么着了，他们就在就把下午送的。
So now here it says how to begin the generation of wisdom. The means of generation of wisdom, in other words. How to begin the generation of wisdom is to complete the benefits of generating wisdom and faults of not generating it. Since I will explain these benefits and faults of having or lacking the wisdom of reality or selflessness in the insight section, I will not elaborate on this here, but I will discuss the remaining types of the wisdom a little. With respect to the indicating wisdom's benefit, wisdom is root of all good qualities of this and future lives. As the protector Nagarjuna, 100 verses on the wisdom Prajna Sataka says.
对起，我这最近，这道都被写了是那的，那边都被写了上了高，你最近把都被写了是那，你工作给全都被了高一点，莫瞧的工作给全都被写了可能了，这把写文送也是了吧。
So here now it says, since I will explain the benefits and faults of wavering lacking in this wisdom of reality or self-interest in the insight section, I will not elaborate in here this. So now, at this section, what Lama Tsongkhapa is actually, pointing out is, he's actually pointing out that he will go through the detailed explanations of the conventional reality, the conventionality, rather than the ultimate phenomena.
就把下午去，他们偏端把拉上的，这到下面也得汤起就早一把呢，我不录住去，汤到嘛汤原点的，跟着早写了比，这到你个主笔写了用是中文下，这确定这当他把一中年全部日把一。这到东部九把一写了用钱中文下写所送的的。
So then, with respect to indicating wisdom's benefit, wisdom is the root of all good qualities for this and the future lives. As the protector Nagarjuna 100 verses on the wisdom, Prajna Sataka says, wisdom is the root of all good qualities. Since seen or not yet seen, to achieve both of this, embrace wisdom. This great source for what you seek. And for liberation is knowledge. So stemming it from the start, adhere to wisdom, the great mother.
对起，大家呢，通到嘛，他是的，我说被通我就的通一日一我就日去，嘛通一日一光就日，但他看一那样，写了点呢。写过是的，写了的早一些的人多啊。我说一来结巴结呢，别人我说这里一通就用这一毛了解毛教一的，你叫我什么声音当，你偏觉得了，你写了一结巴结呢写的嘛多，通我就都要嘛多，通到嘛通也得跟着早声音的，嘛通啊声音的，你光这个就是高过多。
The wisdom is the root of good qualities, seen and not seen. What is meant by seen and not seen? So here. The seen refers to the manifest phenomena, something that is obvious to us, something that doesn't require, reasonings and so on and so forth, that can be directly seen by us. That is what is meant by seen. And that the not seen is the obscure phenomena, something that cannot be seen by us. It requires, references or analysis or, reasonings and so on and so forth. So therefore, in order to have a precise knowledge of both seen and not seen, wisdom is required. So in other words, there where it says wisdom is the root of all good qualities, seen and not yet seen, seen and not yet seen.
这到你个主笔是写了用是中写些的也我觉得关键你个主笔在那里，当我觉得他都没有那么多的有的，感觉这些刚入过原那样，少啊。写了一结巴结是写了的我是中国人送的， Jitsen shebi to ne shira zongo se de reshe yada tanga to dewa jana ne ngonjo do konjo kang sheba ndogo yana ya di shir ne shira de yons zongo so ya de reshe.
So then next is to achieve both of this, embrace wisdom. Whether you want to know about the manifest phenomena or whether you want to know about the obscure phenomena, either one that you wanted to know, you should embrace wisdom. Wisdom is the one that enables one to understand unmistakably both manifest phenomena and obscure phenomena.
요는 최대 내가 타봤을 때 아니 모든 하다 매일 고건다 아니 그 년에 타봤다 탄지 침박이 준비 내가 어때 아니 싫어래 예송사.
So then also it says the great source of the what you seek for liberation is knowledge and stemming from its. So now this in brief what it says is now both achievement of high rebirth and achievement of liberation or state of enlightenment will stem from generation of wisdom, without which it's not possible for achieve either one of this.
그래. 또 동본에 싫어라 가보체 그래. 가르쳐서나 싫어도 용천에 용은 가보쳐서는 또 바람질 정가서 용천에 싫어라 용천만 싫어지 바로 대신 봐서 나그러.
So wisdom is also known as Lam Rim Chenmo in Tibetan, which means the Great Mother. So one should embrace this Great Mother, which is the source of eliminating all the faults or the negativities. So if one is able to embrace, one should, if one is able to embrace this Great Mother, then all the faults and defects will be severed.
쇼지는 가서 대 인심이지 종 코너를 시작해 그랬게 말아. 맞아 간대지는 셰드만 셰생이 들어와. 셰소나 강엘에 저거를 마시나 강해요래. 셰세에 얘도 미게 된다로. 얘바 생겼을 셰 얘바디 셰바나 마이바 셰바니바 얘지 쟁이 들어와. 대셔럭이 just 넘으로.
So the wisdom, it is not necessarily, wisdom is important to have a spiritual realizations. But wisdom is needed for our day-to-day life, right? If you know something, you will feel relief. If you're stuck, then you are not knowing something, and you will be not happy with it, right? So suddenly here you see, wisdom is not something that requires for spiritual realizations, but wisdom requires in our day-to-day life.
맞죠 데려와 때내 연락 중에 통에 말이 바세나리 메시바세나리 간제리 바이신 견다쇼 데려와 되게 걸로 되는 세요야 통에 말이 바네.
So if you look at the 12 links of dependent originations, the avidya or the marikpa, ignorance is the first. So it is due to this ignorance, our life becomes so complicated. The complication of our life begins from this ignorance. The first of all 12 links, all of our first link of among the 12 links of dependent originations.
싫어 세대가 좀 쇼진에는 다른 뭐 코너랑 남의 또 싫어 찍고를 거들으면 은혜 말이야. 맞죠 매치기 세대는 몇대 대바인데 대바데 제바인데 메세 싫어 이제선다고 그래. 몇들 싫어 할래요서는 몇대 대바래. 제바 제선 조금 말이 대비 제라 쳐래.
So the wisdom doesn't necessarily identify it as a wisdom realizing emptiness or the selflessness or the impermanence. There are many different kinds of wisdom. For instance, someone who, even though that individual may not have understanding of, emptiness or selflessness or impermanence, but so long as the person who knows what is right and what is wrong, is actually influenced by the wisdom. So without having an influence by the wisdom, we will not be able to distinguish what is right and what is wrong.
대체. 대중 가서 저쪽이야. 거시리 정도 가려는 지시비 걸로 된는가 최초로 짓고. 된는가 최초 문제래. 맞아는 장자들 예대 타지 자와 대발했어 그래. 그러. 단대노로 예대 차지 자와 대한 타지 통도만 타기 자와 예대 타지 싫어 sonsoa. 저와 전부 쉬어져래. 대바스 대변은 로아소를 지래. 로아 사제들은 저대 저와를 싫어면은 아니 대비 랑가라고 말해.
So here now, we always talk about the importance of cultivating wisdom. It is actually true because, you know, discernment of good and bad and right and wrong. In order to have a genuine discernment, the wisdom is required. Without wisdom, we'll not be able to distinguish between right and wrong and a bad and a good. So therefore, wisdom is, according to this particular passage or this particular chapter, the wisdom is the root of all good qualities. Sometimes we may find in the text by saying that faith is the root of all good qualities. Yes, of course, the faith is also the good root of all good qualities, but the wisdom is far more important because the faith is said to be a blind person, but the wisdom is a guidance. So the faith requires a wisdom that guides it.
싫어 진소 나이 미던 자와네 소 대화래 관계체 싫어네 용서 센줘봐 대체 미니 말에 대체 미니 지진 대미 토보 변나 르모 레지 용시 미메바 지시 미마 줘봐 냠바 토보 말에 냠바 메토바 센시소 소도
Now here it says the verse summary of the perfection of wisdom, the 8,000 lines states, wisdom functions like an eye for other 5 perfections, generosity, etc. Then when the other perfections are completed by wisdom, they acquire their eye and fulfill their name. Just as a painting may be complete except for the eyes, but until the eyes are drawn, no wage is obtained.
되게 된다들이 맞아 신소 동방가 보때 싫어 명화이나 아니 농아레스 아니 농아이나 돈체는 주투고 말와 아니 사제기 돈체 사제 살런도 와나 이제 미지 싫어 미다 대바 거레스 변나 로모케제 로모 요수도 버저 미드 현재의 제명화이나 아니 거의 시통될 렌타여 말세네 요수도 참여 말세나 드네지레도 님바터고 말해.
So here now, without wisdom, the above 5 practice of generosity, ethical discipline, patient perseverance, and so on, concentrations and so on, are like a blind person. It will not be able to enter into the city of liberation or the city of enlightenment. So therefore, in order for one to enter into the city of enlightenment, wisdom is inevitable. It requires wisdom to get into. So therefore, here we see we have the very beautiful example. Just as a painting may be complete, except for the eyes, but until the eyes are drawn, no wage is obtained.
변화에 대신 간접지나 싫으면은 아니 genchap텔라 차진자메바데 지바레 손도 변에 대신한 거치네 변화 손도.
So, regardless of what kind of quality that you may possess, but without wisdom, that's a lack of ornament. It's like a lack of ornament.
근데 어머니가 있으면 온 되면서 되면은 내가 주대와 제다 논이 쪽에 내라도 아니 미그 주비미데시게 줘봤어요. 정신 빼자네.
미녀미연달한테 개인도 슬라이드를
제니로스에 어디 되게 치듯이 오는 게 되고 나서 되면은 열지 장로지다.
그래서
근데 제소 도망가 보때 농아이 있어야 되게
in the Chandrakritis Madhyamaka Avatara, there's one beautiful verse I think it is under sixth bhumi, the advancing bhumi, where it says, "Jita longwe chokan de lado meeting kiwi chiki do ba yu de tiba chinju." As an entire crowd of blind people, or as an entire crowd or gathered of the blind people, can easily be led by their desired destination by the person who has a good visual power. Likewise, the wise or the intelligence can lead the blind quality to the victory, or to the city, or to the enlightenment. In other words, so this is what it said in the Madhyamaka Avatara.
네, 도체. 다 예대신로 거치네 세타주와 대 변이 조셔자. 변의 세 정보를 루비 젠체바도 파발라 rumbochi 연전일이 라소비 차제나 노래전 치신들 이토바 젠도 진반네 상대지바 나이 세지젠야 리바다 미리바 넘번지 니비 셔럽지 셔럽 차단이다. 셔럽 차단 제나 신도메데 시마 저대선도
So now here it says how wisdom is necessary for the good qualities is illustrated by the example of the special piece of jewelry made of fine gold that becomes even more breathtaking when adorned with the precious emerald. Likewise, if the gold ornament of the five perfections, from the generosity to meditative stabilization, is adorned with the wisdom which is able to distinguish right from wrong, they become more magnificent because wisdom makes them much pure. No.
거대우슈도 대 맞지 젠착한데 지연소나 연변제에게 찾아와다 아니 지연소 도망가다는 이 싫어지 바로도 신비 신소아이나 아니 지연도 맨다고 차를 써야 되러
No.
대지 대에서 신소가 볼 치 넘버 답을 주바 시바 인데 대로 싫어지 바로도 신반데 아니 지연소 담보도 치 넘버 답을 주바 시바 인비 시대 밀어서면 엄보 밀어서 엄비 유행하라 이지 셰베 쉐연 소소셰네 주도 셰바다 라오 어성도 되시
It is similarly to the way that the mental consciousness, by distinguishing the merits and the faults in the objects of the five sensory faculties, the visual faculty, etc., causes you to engage in what is to be adopted or reject, what is to be cast aside. This is what the glorious Arya Sura's Compendium of Perfection says.
So
let's take a break here.
당에서 엄봉아 쓰고로 엄봉아 미게 맞아 미지 시반에 리지 시비 봐줘 내가 강체바데 아니 미 어시 대다게 이시를 발내 집이잖아요 아니 이시게 제바잖아요 아니 대단 대원님들 또 봐도 제거로 와지
The five sense consciousness. When the five sense consciousness engages with this object, and then the information goes to the mental consciousness, and the mental consciousness is the one that discerns the objects, 5 objects. So the 5 other practices of generosity, ethical discipline, and so on are said to be like a 5 mental consciousness, 5 sense consciousness, 5 sense faculties. But the mental consciousness is like wisdom is like a mental consciousness, which actually discerns what is right and what is wrong. No. Number Shiva the Balanya is Lago to Thermish.
Then make number Shibate, then I'm going to Joshua Pendode, make number Shibate, Corojin, Regent over there, and the Balanya, Bicolo Balanya, and Motichibical, Motichi, any Shatan Roguda, each number Shiba, you call like a Jabba, Yandu Teguda.
That's what.
Azume does a lot of Copalanya Bicoro.
That's all.
Cutting at the land of the Madi, but you tired the trail, the Ramans, and not jail a son of the Indra scientist.
So it is the answer to the question. Somebody raised a question during our previous teachings regarding the 5 sense consciousness at the time of one's death. When one is passed away, when one passed away from this life, and you actually where our 5 sense consciousness will remain. It's just completely ceased to exist, or it's continual. It still goes to the continuity of the sense consciousness to go to the next life and so forth. So here the answer is the 5 sense consciousness will remain as a dormant manner. That's what you're saying. It is not activated. It's not in an active manner, but rather it will remain in a dormant manner. It carries its propensity or its imprints or the continuity along with the mental consciousness. The dormant manner will travel along with the mental consciousness. It will not exist, it cease to exist, but it remains in a dormant manner and travel with mental consciousness.
It's about Java to was an airport. Also, again, then I don't you also to you color any one shit touching got any shit touch Sami Shilla Monges in the Terrasore, Ningaba de any Pasha on Rovasena. Young Matsuge. Shiba in the Shiba and Monjoala, and Shiba in the Monjo in the child matches in the period. That does much at Chiba Chiba. Shiba and Monjo in the Matsuma, you check matches every. Teacher Tono Pachim Malambi Jilla Shanchuki sent with Garsa Balan in the area. Now you check Hashila, and Monjo Maimbi to salary. And he's even a Madame Boyer. That is Chibachi, you know.
So here, this is actually open to, it always requires a lot of analysis. One need to analyze and compare with the different interpretations or the different explanations that we may find. Because now, even in the monastery, different monasteries have a different way of interpreting when it comes to the dormant sense consciousness, how the dominant sense consciousness troubles with mental consciousness and so forth. So there are different interpretations. But there isn't the answer that the one that I'm answering here is based on the text that belongs to my own monastery. So therefore, for instance, it says, when someone who is realizing emptiness directly through meditative concentrations, and such individuals, when the individual's mental consciousness become non-dual with the emptiness, then such individuals' sense consciousness will remain in a dormant manner, it says, dormant manner, and all their mental consciousness will be transformed into a uncontaminated wisdom, realizing emptiness. That is what it says. And then also we have a saying that the bodhisattvas who are on the bodhisattva uninterrupted path of the bodhisattva was on the first bhumi of uninterrupted path. Uninterrupted path. When such a bodhisattva who is on the state of uninterrupted path of the bodhisattva's sense consciousness are again not actively manifested. That's a one interpretation. It's not actively manifested, but it doesn't say it is in a dormant manner. And then some said it is in a dormant manner, but it doesn't really. It's in a dormant manner, and some said it remains as a propensity. And when the bodhisattvas who are on the first bhumi or the uninterrupted path, their bodhicitta is also in a dormant manner. So you will see a lot of different interpretations in a different text written by the different composer.
ombo susu yichi jedala tujen yichi sewa temba jen she so soin.
So now the text says, this is what the glorious Ayasura's compendium of the perfection says. The mirrors of generosity and so forth are more powerful with wisdom as their lord. Just as an array of fine gold jewelry shine more brightly when inset with jewels, it is this wisdom that renders vast the capacity for virtue in the purpose of each one. Just as the mind's additional power clearly displays the respective object of the sensory faculties.
추도는 만나다 기회만 당가서 배에나 다세다 니기 진짜 쉬고 당고로. 다 진짜 던지질 찾지면 여도 쉬려다. 다 거제 야는 던지 찾지 마자 봐라 그 장도 소리 있잖아. 좋아지네요 말에. 그 저거지네요 말에.
So here the Tibetans like to wear a lot of jewelries, many different kinds of jewelries, you know. So wearing jewelry is the jewelry, whatever the jewelry that made out of gold or silver or whatever, but it really needs, it really needs what do you call it? It really needs that's ornaments. It actually, in order for the gold necklace to shine brightly, either it is, adorned by like corals or turquoise or and so on and so forth. So therefore, to become a really breathtaking jewelry. It requires many different, parts or the supportive parts that really shines out.
다데 제기 다데 나가마다 바네 바오데 자가이 핀투로 제 노소여지로 당가서 배워도 봐이나 해마다 봐이나 보모데 남았다고 해서나 다 변조기 쉽게 마음이 괜찮아서 그래. 다 치즈 정으로 저기 연대 나오기 연대 맞아 쉬이 다데데 문제스나 가전 쉬고 나네. 다 뒤서 따야 맞서 넘가 되거나 집에도 괜찮진 다뭐 그거 사실. 마도 무슨 저보이는 때 강해요.
So, as all both Tibet and India, they have a traditions when the daughter is sent as a bride to someone's house, then the daughter really needs a lot of ornaments, a lot of jewelries, especially in India. Sometimes it is also said that half of the wealth of the parents will will be consumed by the daughter's jewelry when she is venturing on the path to her husband's home. So this is really a tradition rooted in India, but it's in Tibet. There has been a lot of change now because since His Holiness advised quite often by saying that wearing such a heavy jewelry is not really a good sign. So it doesn't really help you to become better person and so on and so forth. It is because of his advice now in Tibet there had been great change. Not many people are into wearing these ornaments and the jewelries now.
맞아 저쪽에 시계에 된가 처음으로 저서 그만가 저 거서 인도 거서 줘야래 아마 어디 동호원지 넘비 걸 정으로 제 가장 사무실로 나마로 되는서 가서 얘도 컨셔트를 젠슈 다 그래 둘로 이나래 젠차도 쉬지 다 그래 다 정으로 이제 가장 나네서 다 대리선이 땅이에요 말이 계속 땅이에요나 하나 지 잠이지 정원도 들어서네 하나 다 대제땡에 쇼레세 된지기 찾아래 다 정으로 이제 다 대파식으로 된지지요.
So here, some may have heard this advice from His Holiness during his teachings in Amravati and Kala Chakra, during the Kala Chakra initiation in Amravati. Maybe the Andrew was there, so you may heard about that. So His Holiness actually advised Tibetans, particularly in Kham region, the Khampa people, should not wear this, ornaments and jewelries because the region, the Kham region, is a more fond towards wearing this heavy jewelries and so forth. So His Holiness advised them not to do that. And now it has been, a big change, a dramatic change has taken place in Tibet, particularly in the Kham region. Not many people are wearing it. So even if someone is wearing a heavy jewelry and they criticized and saying that they are the followers of Chinese communists, and even some says that they are followers of the Shugden worshippers and so forth.
다 되게 갈라놓비 제잖아 단대노게 빼대 매바체 병도 영향 차와래 다 문제잖아 다 경고 천절라니 지 이게 이모만제 손에 이거 경고 천절라 이걸 해야 되고 다 할래기 좀 많이 왔던데 정말에 다 배워놓나 나가만 있는 가서 거바트서를 지 천이단 제 해져서 노소코로야 말을 원지 코라제만 다데 다 근데다 유쇼다 미마 소연절라 아니 이모세에 아니 용수 조박인 게 커네 So His Holiness, then instead of putting in a lot of effort and taking your time to making this ornament and wearing all the jewelries and so forth, why don't you put your time to study Buddha Dhamma? Just not by listening to someone and reciting some mantras and chanting and reciting some verses, but rather, why don't you just receive the teachings and receive the explanations and not just verbalizing so that you can internalize when you are verbalizing. So therefore, it has a
that the dramatic change has taken place in Tibet right now, even in the very uh, remote areas, in the rural areas, where elderly people are putting an effort to learning in alphabets, and then after a couple of years they can read and write and study the Dhamma. And then also His Holiness strongly emphasized introducing studying the Buddhist philosophy in all those different monasteries in Tibet, because there are many branch smaller monasteries. They are not really that those philosophies are not really introduced. They're memorizing the text and ritual performance, and they spend their entire life being in that monastery, engage themselves in the learning of ritual performance and memorizing the ritual text and so forth. But now it has been great. The change has taken place greatly on those places. Not only just memorizing and going through the learning of ritual performance, the process of ritual performance, but also now, all of them are actually studying the Buddhist philosophy and receiving the extensive teachings in Buddha Dhamma.
다른 것도 배번 농코 계신 배바 지고 계셔 배바 지고 제가 말다 다 히말라야 세번은 자발린 디 강라 센조조 저발라 하셔전에 저저 되고도 대어 유무비네지의 템베다 세리라 세리바는 저와전에 딘트기 샬레 자치만하게다 배지 장고로 전화이 다제 템바 페베컬 중요 말이 이마 장고로 지금 위스콘신 페베컬라 나한테 신타스인데도 진다서는 아주 끝에나도 소 자체 장아서 나도 다들 다가라래도
So here now, His Holiness, the way his teaching is pervaded. His teachings and advices and his influences are pervaded even more than Buddha. I would safely say that, because now if you look at the Himalayan regions, in other words, at some sense, we could say the entire world, that his influences are there. Practice of loving, compassion, and so on and so forth. It is really amazing to see that such a powerful message that he sends for all beings who can easily be influenced by his advice of practicing compassion, loving, compassion, love and compassion, and so forth. Those two are based on sound reasonings, not just mere practicing compassion is good or practicing love is good and so on and so forth. But every practice that you may do must accord to reality, must accord to the scientific finding. That's what he always says. So therefore, at one time when His Holiness visited Wisconsin, he said half jokingly, "I'm a pioneer of Buddha Dhamma." He said, "the pioneer of Buddha Dhamma." So it is really true. It's not a half joking. I would say it is really serious. He is a pioneer.
다만 사제 시주빈내가라 단대 정으로 온잖아 이게 간전 잠일인데 넣으려고 그래서 미기 나온주 때는 패투에 말해 자가다 예시를 뭐 패별로 주면도 다 이나야 친례기 깨지 진리는 친례 깨지 시나다 단대 정으로 뭐 저기 나온도 이게 친례돼요 다 상제기 친례로 아마도 껍껍도 뒤 깨지 시소나 배제 다제 정으로 온잖아 이게 배제 다제 때문에 더지는 시주빈내가서 미 리스테발에 배제 좋아요 So the
enlightened activities, if we were to look at the enlightened activities of the Buddha Shakyamuni, and in a common appearance as a historical Buddha Shakyamuni, he has not been able to reach as much as how His Holiness could reach at this point. There's no in the Buddha story the Buddha has actually visited different parts of the Asian countries and so on and so forth to turn the wheel of Dharma. But of course, when it comes to the uncommon, in uncommon context, then Buddha's activities is pervaded throughout the existence. He gives teachings to the human, non-humans, devas, asuras, and so forth. But in so long as if you look at the common appearance or the common aspect, Buddha has not said to, visited different parts of the Asian countries and so on and so forth. So these are all like enlightened activities. What you see right now, His Holiness activities of spreading not just the Dharma, but spreading the practice of loving compassion, loving kindness, and practice of non-violence is pervaded throughout the world. So therefore, it is really fortunate for all of us to be able to have received a direct teachings from such a precious, impeccable, ennobling, impeccable gurus. It is something that we should marvel ourselves to be able to receive such a teachings. So therefore, I would always say myself, I see that His Holiness's activity surpasses the activities of the Buddha, and for myself, I would say that all the time. Safely, I could say that. So now here, let's continue from the text. Similarly, wisdom is also crucial for other faculties, such as faith and so on. When wisdom is present as Lord, your generosity, faith, etc., understand well the merits of virtue and the faults of stinginess and so forth. So you become skilled at eliminating the frictions and increasing good qualities. It is true that just having a very just being oneself is so so encouraged to have such a courageous person, but it requires eyes to see, right? If you have without eyes, regardless of how much courage, the intensity of courage that you may have, you will not be able to fulfill the task completely without eyes. So it requires with eyes, then a combination of eyes and your courage will then take you to the destinations. The Compendium of Perfection states, among the various faculties of the faith and so on, wisdom is chief, as the mind is to the sensory faculties. With wisdom as Lord, you know what is a fault and what merits. So you are skilled in the method of eliminating afflictions. So just think about here, the affliction is something that is unclear, is a blurry, and the wisdom is a clear. So when there is a blurry or something that is dark, and if you eliminate the lights right there, then the darkness will be dispelled. So therefore, in order for us to eliminate our afflictions, the wisdom that dispels these afflictions is required.
Shanchu semba lo de shanchu sembe no bola shajin ja meji non bole lamba ta ngaje dan shumba la sube na do ge minje wa ne ni shiro je de khona ni mo do jo ba le yin la so do
Bodhisattvas depend on wisdom to purify the other 5 perfections, generosity, etc. Even when they give their flesh to someone who asks for it, they are unaffected by such thoughts as pride, discouragement, etc. It is as though they were just cutting off a medicine plant.
ta nga chon de je do pe na shang da ta mo li jin da bu ji sen na re da ka yin da ji yin ne shanchu sembe ge ji xian la so ba da de zhe ge hong sa le yin ga la ne shanchu sembe ga shi zhuo xin de ne men ji dong bo lang la na yin na ge re ma do ani de la ten bi ge ne nge nga ma to de zhe ji ge jin ba tong tu gu ma re sa nga je che gu ma ne nge de tong ba le ten nga la ka nge che ge re si bi shong ba la che gu ma re me chi bi je se ka re sa na ni shiro ji de ko na ni ta shiro ji yu zun ba la long shi ba tong do ra.
Because of this wisdom, the bodhisattvas, if they give away even their own limbs, even if they have to cut off their limb and give it to somebody, they will do so with delightfully. But there's no thoughts of high and low by saying that I am the only one who could do such practice. It's completely absent. And they would not have any concern for their own self, their own welfare. They will do so with delightfully, even they have to give away their own limbs and faculties and so forth. So then we may question ourselves by saying that if the bodhisattvas give away their own body, then he will no longer exist. Then what will happen to him? So then also the one thing that bodhisattvas will even give away their own body, they don't care about giving away their body. But there's no concern for giving away their own body to others. It's because everything that belongs to them can be utilized for the welfare of other beings. This is the pure intention or the resolute intention, uncontrived resolute intention, working for the welfare of other sentient beings is present, purely present within the stream of being, within the continuum of the bodhisattvas. So therefore, he or she, the bodhisattvas, have no concern of giving out their own, bodies and so forth. This is the one factor. Then another factor is because he realized the reality of phenomena. But understanding the reality or the suchness or thusness, then everything that exists as a conventional existence are said to be existence, or it is not truly existence. The bodhisattvas will have understanding of not truly existence of conventionality. So therefore, there's no such feeling of attachment or feeling of concern by to give away his own belongings, such as body, limbs, and so forth, because he or she is completely overpowered by the loving kindness and an resolute intention of working for the welfare of other sentient beings.
다 파르데 심바 주보 동보 주보도 일레가 제스레시도와 시지 교바 통이 셰랍지 아니 수준지 전에 주베 수준 넘버 타바 셰바 당세디지.
So this because their wisdom marks reality, manifests within the wisdom that sees the trouble of both cyclic existence and the peace of Nirvana, they accomplish ethical discipline for the sake of others' welfare. So they practice pure ethical discipline.
마치 시지 교바세나 시비 교바다 거의 님이로와 다시 유 교바세서나 아니 쇼와냠데 세나 아니 라니 집시데 되니 저로 되게 아니 선제탄지 조비 산제지 고모 터발라 아니 계시 쟁여인 자디 시다 시 교바셀라나 제단 쇼와이나 교바 차고 말이 조바 차고로.
So here now we see it talks about the troubles of both cyclic existence and the peace of Nirvana, right? The troubles of cyclic existence is obvious because we are the one who is going through those experiences. But then when it goes to the trouble of Nirvana, he refers to trouble of Nirvana. He refers to having not having a concern for the welfare of entire sentient beings, but single-pointedly remaining oneself in the peace of Nirvana. That is what is meant by trouble of Nirvana.
라니 찍고 쇼와 터바 당 세제 탄제도 조비 산제제 고모 터바니 쳇바데 신주 쟁에데 제단데 니지 온게 시타 반스 라거레데 이나요 코 된첨부 두나 계속 쳇와 통에데 싫어로.
So here now someone who is completely immersed in the practice of peace of Nirvana alone will then working solely for the achievement of one's own liberations. But then someone who is working for the welfare of other sentient beings, influenced by the great compassion, it achieves more purposes. It has more purposes and more meaning.
또 수천시 답시바 당지 무즈바다 즈비제 셔러지 또네 세티웨 로주당 동해지 메초바 당지 다 셔러지 강로 준지 좀비지 레바시네 델라 좀베 랑지 최체와 대관한이제 되는 네비 삼대제 가데초네 리피츠라 템비 셔러지 주바시바 진소 마보 용서 답시바네 셔러라라레데 소부터.
Through wisdom, they know the faults of impatience and the merits of the patience, and they then discipline their minds so they are not overpowered by sufferings and others' misperceptions of them. With wisdom, they understand well everything, at which they joyously persevere. So their perseverance become great success on the path. And through the wisdom based on reasoning, they accomplish the supreme delight and bliss of the meditative stabilization and is fixed upon the meaning of reality.
다지간이 상주 선발라 샤 가사 샤진장 네 가서 차도다 shum바 제거 말에 송에데 지비게 연대 있잖아요. 동부터 심바 연대래시.
So the earlier explanation that we talked about, the bodhisattvas, even if they give away their own limbs and their flashes and so forth, will not have, the feeling of high and low. It's mainly talking about the practice of generosity.
당연히 타마된 적이 적어도 내 던져로 나서 근데 싫어버터서 상태기 대화냐 투어래 상태기 대화냐 투어다 상태기 대화 되니라 리피 제선라비 대화 말이 배나가 성이나 데피 데팔에 이미 다 칸코말 쉬었다네 아니 싫어 너진지 상태 증거지 생각들 던져 가는마도 아니 코이 녀모기 리스 타발에 녀보다네 니 고마 대화 되는 얘기 상태네 매완산 상태의 페바도 오래 냥추초래 So
here now it says, it mentioned that so their perseverance brings great success on the path, and through the wisdom based on reasoning, it's a very there's a key point here. It says that through wisdom based on reasoning, they accomplish the supreme delight and bliss of meditative stabilizations that fix upon the meaning of reality. See, because the meditative stabilization, the bliss of meditative stabilization can be accomplished even by the non-Buddhist practitioners. It is not a unique realization for the Buddhist practitioner, right? So now, what is unique? Is the wisdom based on reasoning. It is a wisdom based on reasoning. So therefore, we find in the non-Buddhist practitioners, because they find a lot of flaws and faults in the desire realms, and they generate strong wish to take a rebirth within the heightened state of realms, heightened state of kamgoma, which is the heightened state of realms, which is beyond desire realms. So therefore they engage in the intense practice of meditative stabilizations and gain the blissful experiences of meditative stabilizations, so that they take rebirth within the heightened state of existence. But at the same time, their practice of meditative stabilization is not something towards eliminating the affections, and there's no reasoning behind it. It is mere practice of meditative stabilizations.
되게 쳐버려요. 나 지금 되지. 라 산델라 아메리카 셔러라라레 되지. 셔러 미스 넘버 셔저나 chanchu sembarangi 신장 단지 되기래도 매지시다 넘버면 또봐 통마와 저와 될라메 제당에서 랑게 된도 추추 미주나 로데시비 쪼리 쥐통신 되는 지대 말린 되면 봐 시비 된데 미주 미주고 제당 싫어된바 나나 녀바다 제비인데 여바 녀민주 신된데 넘버 추나나 레지 체파 너무 저바제 전지집에 셰베 예위타 싫어 조지 쪼나 denchen du jedang denda is something dedalaga denji something dega cho demba chönse nyeba chembo ba jibi langur jibi chula temba yi jo mara yimba jeta du shes jeso so sheje gelone do.
The Compendium of Perfection states, once bodhisattvas have opened the clear eye of wisdom, even then they give their own flesh without a thought. They never feel high or low about it, as if they were cutting a medicinal plant. And also, intelligent ones do not practice ethical discipline for their own aims, right? They see the flaws in the prison of cyclic existence and aspire to release the entire world from it. So of course, they do not practice it for mundane aims. And also, injury done to the wise is not harmful because they possess the good quality of patience. like the best of every tame elephants, who are patient with many different tasks. Perseverance by itself ends its exhaustions. If aided by its ally, wisdom, it achieves great purpose. And also, how could the supreme delight and bliss of such meditative stabilizations be established in the minds of the crude people who rely upon reasoning that has led them to the wrong path, that is polluted by the great fault of accumulated errors?
대체 대기 대래도 다시 시제대 맞아 넘버진 대비 떠던 데마성에 대 맞아 저바다는 진짜 초세에 기본의 저래셔 아니 생 대비 떠들 싫어기 떠려자 아니 여이나 아니 가세기 내봐야나 커투로 와서 저러 되는도 넘버진 떠진을 저 가세기나 커투로.
So here, this elephant will be said as a tame elephant will be said as an example. We will often find in different texts. It says here, like the best of very tame elephants who are patient with many different tasks, regardless of what kind of heavy load that lets elephant to carry, the tamed elephant can do so with patience and so forth. So therefore, if our mind has a power of wisdom, and when one can fulfill the task, regardless of how difficult it may be.
당가 손도 올리지로 로 쥐어가시야나 야사 니보가시야나 마 베테 데데나 아니 랑도서다 타린도나 타니르도서 기계야마네 되게 조 마르지라 아니 유대유의 거거야마로 당가서 쓰지나.
So here now,
if
you look at the last verse, how could the supreme delight and bliss of the such meditative stabilizations be established in the minds of the crude people who rely upon reasoning that has led them to wrong path and that is polluted by the great faults of accumulated errors? So for us now here, if we always hide our own faults, even though that you know that there's numerous flaws going in our continuum, but we try to hide that and pretend that you are being really, really wonderful person and so forth, will not really take us towards the state of enlightenment or the liberations.
Yeah. 내가 치쇼 가르고 나서 내가 치쇼 가르고 그래서나 리피트 제너럴 제토고 리피트 제너럴 제토와 있어나 매일 로그 도세도 양사를 도고 말에 순저밖에만 인치미지 따제 제비토네 아니 가서이나 리피트 제너럴 강사설라서나 엄보신도 내버들에 엄보신도 내버들서 일 간제질은 주나요 동보 따제 제너마도 매 영원도 도고 말에라 양주 제고 말.
So here the most important for us to be followers of the reasoning, not just followers of blind faith alone. One should always remain followers of the reasonings. So if one becomes a followers of the reasonings, and one will not be easily trust or believe in what others saying. Rather, one will go through a thorough analysis, whether or not the person has expressed or whether that person has said or the claim is right or wrong. We will go through. So therefore, someone who is known as followers of the reasoning is said to be a sharp faculty person.
또 어기 치등에 됐을로네 자고 또 가와는 이제니 싫어도 되면 명가와 주바네 서로와 세대배 년보시라 남주에나 쉬우지 또 되버리지.
So here it says now good two good qualities which may appear to be mutually exclusive prove to be non-contradictory for those who have wisdom. It's a really beautiful.
또 다대게 동부대자 아니자기 상선 리절로 오이 콜로지 제본저바나 대저 온데 민조와 싫어지 름보다 dembi tu la asa bene te tenrechi to ate te bat chila sire yi tu yi la che te bat chilo ro chida pe momo dunga te mondo rumi.
When the bodhisattvas have become universal monarch with authority over the entire world, they still do not fall under the control of sensory objects.
나가마 있는 제복이 renlu 도시기 제복이 롬바티기 제복 차소나 롬바티기 온차 찬소이 비콜라 엔 롬바티기 대한 요소 조바테 니 제복 코로나나 온차다 제복 kuchile zumo ngajayorse tene hiedo 다 상주 선발로 떠요 린지 온나요 대한라 메차이데 가리 제레사나 아니 싫어 주는 거요 인자네 아니 제복 있나요 대한라 차고 말해 대니 가와요 말씀.
So here now, non-contradictory is explained here very clearly by saying that when the bodhisattvas have become universal monarch with authority over the entire world, they still do not fall under the control of sensory objects because of their wisdom, right? Because in in ancient time, the kings are said to be the most powerful in their own country, so they can do whatever they want. They are beyond the rules. So the kings we have if you look at the stories, there's kings who have 500 wives and so on and so forth. But those kings have no control over their sensory their control over the attachment of their sensory objects. They have a strong attachment towards the sensory objects. Therefore, they will become attached to all those 5 sensory objects and so on. But if you look at the bodhisattvas, even if they become a universal monarch, right? Due to their wisdom, they will still not fall under the control of the sensory objects.
나가마 제복 renlu 이비고 tendera마 데레 손에다 만조 데레 제복 몸보치라야 데메도.
So of course we're talking about long time, centuries. But nowadays, we don't have a king with 500 wives and so forth.
Yeah.
Moreover, the most of the countries, many countries have become democratic, so there is no possibility for someone can have 500 wives and so forth.
다 안가서 대린 추세니기라 사비네 대천의 뒤손도 사비 교환의 쇼지도 메탈라 되네 아니 상주지 세는 버지제네 바로 대신 거 중요사네네 조배 상주지 공부는 영원년도 너님바 지장에 다게 샤워 세네만 되나 주변에 아마서다 제방에 신절로도서 는 공화다 방안이가 나마.
Let's do our dedications and prayers that by means of accumulating virtue and merits for this 2 hours of time. So with this accumulation merits, may I achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all the sentient beings, and also establish entire sentient beings to the state of enlightenment. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, please bless me to be able to do this.
家业颠簸有人在纠结，两拨人间就给莫交往，悄悄两拨举杯说的呢，一节千百一绕九八一，遍地点点写花写花说。世间教育民众天天的，列主上主能就天天长，唐的能就一老别的心，教育在把人都讲究起，唐僧主别天前主先进，眼见世界不当门面根，才让更多教育好报应，能当这我莫纠结。好在天宝出了去学去，最近住了尊宝天元菜，土地能就到处住些去，扎西将此手要就去，看着绕月古月星光，便当的我梦见九月，俺在西里在我点在叫作业。小别三天毛多天就见，就是那面过菜老天见。南瓜城内手指结巴汤，老张点边正面撒松节。若夜面色大多年就见，江边八月直打千宝汤。更多上波天阳天前天，得到根基就是道路去，也望得到堂前老多光，就说西边叫我堂前，光我光了秋多光光的，大人给月早我的根长，上波是老多光。哎呀，对不起，太久。